All right, so how many of you is unit testing a new word? New phrase, never heard it before. Cool. Good company to be in. Unit testing, especially to when you're getting new to development, just seems like a lot of extra code and a lot of extra time, kind of a waste. But in reality, testing is essential to developers daily. This class is the only time where you will be writing code that's only your own. Everything you write inside of a company, as long as you're not like a freelancer, but even then you'll be using other people's code, you will be adding pieces to an already built and deployed project. You know, you're working for Amazon, their website's already up. You can't go change their code when you have to implement your piece. You got to add yours to it. Well, how do you know that the function you wrote didn't break one of the other 100,000 functions other developers already wrote, without you having to go and happily check every single file in their giant library? It takes your entire hard drive just to download. You don't, because each of those developers, as they write a function, they've also written a couple tests for that function. And all you have to do is say run tests, and it will run through all the tests, test all the functions, and let you know, hey, the thing you just wrote broke this function on this file, so go see why that correlates. Saving you the hours and hours it would take to find exactly where that happened. So unit testing, simply put, is the process of testing our program in units. So what is a unit? What is like a little compact box full of a couple statements that execute? A function. Yes, unit testing is testing our functions, because functions are the little units in our code that add up to the total application or what site or what have you that we're making. So testing, breaking our programs into small functions that can all be individually tested. So we're not testing, does this function work with this function with this function? We're saying, does this function do the one thing it's supposed to do? Because if we test them all individually, as a whole, they should work, because they're all doing their job. There is other types of testing. There's continuous integration. So how do these things integrate together? It's a different realm of testing we won't get to. We're going to stick with unit. And there's a few others for like user testing and such. This is the place to start. And if you approach your program with testing mindset, you are said to be a test-driven developer, or test-driven development, TDD. And this is why a lot of new coders don't gravitate towards testing, because it doesn't mean write your function first. It means write your test first, expecting it to fail because your function doesn't exist, and then go build out your function until the test passed. And then you move on to the next test and then write the function for it. So what we're going to do is we're going to install the framework we're going to use, or the library we're going to use for testing, and then write a test, knowing it will fail, and then write a function to make it pass. Testing frameworks. Does anyone know of any?
Like Selenium.
Selenium? Cool. There's Mocha and Chai. They're kind of you have to use them together. Chai to write tests. Mocha is used to run the tests. So it's kind of two packages in one. We used to teach that, so if you want to learn about it, you can go to our coursework site and look up Mocha and Chai. And this shows you how to use Mocha and Chai. However, last year we updated to a different framework, Jest. The reason why we chose Jest is Jest is the default testing framework for React. It comes with React. So if you learn Jest, now you have the testing framework for React already looked at. Trying to take two birds with one. This can test non-React code as well. Any framework you're really working in, this can test it, as long as it's configured right. We're going to use it to test just basic JavaScript for the time being. So Jest is the test writer and the test runner, all built into one. It's very nice. Well, I need to install it as a dependency. What is my command to do so with Node? npm Same way I installed readline sync.
init-y.
So init-y will create my package JSON. But now I need to install dependencies. I first, which is short for install, and then the package name, Jest. And that's all I need. It's a large package though, so it may take like 20, 30 seconds to download sometimes. So we're gonna let it do its thing, and we'll slowly see our package JSON. We'll have the dependencies pop in, the node modules will show up. Okay, there they are. And this is the first time you open node modules and you just think, what? What did I just install? Oh my, yeah. Yes. So certain packages you install require hundreds of other packages to work. So when you install Jest then saying, well, I need all these things to work. Install as well. All you have to say is npm install Jest, and you're taken care of. But just be aware, you open up node modules, you're going to be looking at quite a bit of code, because each of these also have quite a bit of code. We can finally dig down into one of them and see what's going on. And this file alone, I just found a random file. We don't know what half of this stuff is doing for us, and that's fine. Yes, that's why we add this folder to our git ignore. Because who wants this much code to go to your GitHub, every project, install Jest on? Yeah, well, yeah. You are correct. I'm gonna get rid of the node modules. So now those don't get pushed up to GitHub, and GitHub will give you a little warning like you might be running out of memory space, which is an odd thing because text takes up so little memory. It takes a lot of text to kind of go over the limit. But node modules can do that if you push up enough. All right, we have Jest now, but we need to teach Node that this is our testing framework. For this project, we are going to use Jest to test. So as you see, every time we get a package JSON, it gives us this scripts object by default. And scripts actually has a very special use. All of these words can be used as commands with Node to run some specific command. Well, for testing purposes, I would like to use Jest. So I'm going to come in here and delete the default text and just say, I want you to use Jest. And that's enough for the package JSON. It will look in our node modules and know what we're talking about. So with that done, I don't have anything in my file yet except the notes, but I'm going to try to run my test command. So how do I run this command? Well, I say npm test. It's going to check my package JSON for a test command. It's like, I know what that means. Let me do it. So then you can see it's running Jest, and then instead of throwing a big error, no test found, exiting with code 1. We haven't written any tests yet, so that makes sense. If it doesn't find any tests, it won't run the testing software. So that is how we'll run it, npm test. Anytime we want it to run Jest and execute our tests. Clear. There we go. So I'm going to write the shell of the function here. Our favorite, most used function to date, function sum, takes two numbers. It's so exciting. It returns their sum. Oh, we're not going to do that yet. Sorry, I said shell, then I almost finished it. And I'm just going to start off with that. That is my intention. Well, I don't write my tests in the same file as I write my functions. It wouldn't make sense. It's too convoluted. Your files will get huge. What's a function? What's a test? So the convention for this with Jest is, as you can see here, I have a sum.js file. That is my file where this one function is living. I'm going to make a test file for this, and I'm going to call it sum.test.js. So this is the test file for this file, and this is the naming convention. So if this file was called subtraction, the test file would be subtraction.test.js. Well, how do I get this function available to me in another file? What is my export word in Node? module dot exports equals, and if I don't want to export a bunch of things, I don't have to use an object. I'm just going to export my function. So now this file is exporting a single function. So that in my test file, which I will now just break to the side, in my test file, I can pull it in. I can say const sum equals require from my sum.js file. And now I can test it over here in my testing file. Yeah, it's a little too big. Okay. Nice. And that is our setup. Now we're ready for writing. So two main keywords to write a test with Jest. We can use either the word test, which is pretty straightforward, or the word it. As far as they work, there is no big difference. It's all semantics. So that we can say something like test returns the sum of two numbers. Or if we like the it syntax better, we could say it returns the sum of two numbers. As far as how Jest is going to run these, they're going to be the same way. So use whichever one makes the most sense to you. I'm going to stick with test for now. Just know that it could be replaced for test, and all of this will work the same. So I want to test that it returns the sum of two numbers. That is the name of my test. The second argument of a test is a anonymous function. And in this function is where we write the actual test. So at this point, I'm going to run the program just to see what's happening. See if Jest can find my tests now. So npm test. Ooh, it found it and it passed. It returns the sum of two numbers. Found my file. So this is what Jest is looking for. It's looking for .test.js files. And then it will immediately execute any test inside of it. That is why I use this test word without my program breaking, because Jest knows what I'm talking about. If I try to run this file with Node, it'd say test is undefined. If I say npm test, Jest goes and looks at it for me, and Jest knows what test means. Well, this is wrong apparently, right? I don't have a function to test yet. It's empty. So I'm not really passing. I'm just not really testing anything. So how do we write the actual implementation here? So we're going to learn this word, expect. I'm going to expect the number 5 to be the number 5. This test will always pass, because I'm expecting something that always is to be the thing that it always is. And this is how we write it. So I can say expect something to be something, or what should it return? If this evaluates to true, the test passes. If not, it fails. So if we ran this again right now with npm test, finds my file, and it passes. Now what if I say expect the string 5 to be the number 5, or npm test? Fail, fail. So this is what a failure looks like in testing software. You'll get the name of your test with a big old red flag. Returns the sum of two numbers, did not work. It expected 5, and it received the string 5. So it's giving you a very clear output of what went wrong, and then shows you exactly where it happened. So now let's actually test our function. I want to expect my function sum, being called with the numbers 10 and 4, to output 14. That is what that function should do. But if I run this test right now, is it going to pass or fail? Why won't it? Yeah, I haven't built any logic into this. So this is called red-green testing, and this is test-driven development. You write the shell of your function, and then you start writing tests. You run your tests knowing they will fail. You see the red light, and now you're striving for the green light. Red-green testing. So now I go back over to my sum file. I'm like, you know what? let's finish this off. Let's say this returns the sum of two numbers. And now we should be fighting for the green light. We're seeing the green light. NPM test. And it passed. Perfect. The nice thing is, what if I want to test multiple examples of this? I can copy this, give it different numbers to make sure it handles everything I can give it. 0 and 4 should just give me 4. 10 and 2 should give me 12. And if any of these fail for any reason, it will tell me which one failed and what value it got instead. This is one way to test a function. Users will never use your functions like you expect them. Well, they will, but not always. So again, what is the command I use to run my tests? What is the again command to tell Node to run my tests?
npm test.
npm test. Why does this work? Why does the test word work? My package JSON. I said, hey, when I say npm test, I really mean run Jest. So I built in a script right there. So I have my function file, and then I have my function test file. Well, what's another way this function could be used incorrectly to make it break? Because what if I did this? What would I expect that to be? Yeah.
Just 4.
Well, what do we want to have happen if the user gives us a string?
Oh,
We could either crash it or we could give them a message. Maybe if we get something like this in our function, we actually want to return a string rather than a sum, and the string says something like, must give me 2 numbers. Well, now when I run npm test, what's going to happen? It's going to fail because I haven't built that into my function yet. So we're back to the red. With how the game continues, green light comes next, right?
Are you sure it says test 5 failed?
Returns a sum of 2 numbers. Expected must give me 2 numbers. Received 4 hello. So it added 4 and hello together and returned that. And then it's saying this is the test that failed. These ones were fine. They're in white. But here's the red line. This test in particular failed. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Well, this is kind of a different test. Here we're saying return the sum of 2 numbers, but what is this actually a test for?
This is the
Yeah, so this is a different test. This doesn't follow suit with what we're testing here. This is a completely different test. So I'm going to make a different test block. I'm going to say if given non-numerical values, lets the user know. Maybe that's our test for this one. And that's really where we're going to test this one. That's more of what this is doing. And test is still going to fail, but this is nice because as you build multiple tests, the console view that Jest and these frameworks give you is very pleasant. We will get a snapshot of all of them. They'll say, where are we? Is it this one? Yeah. So it said if returns the sum of 2 numbers, check. That didn't pass. If given non-numerical values, it lets the user know, did not pass. So we get this nice checklist along the way. So let's make this go green and call it good for now. We'll revisit this time and time again. But what would I have to add to my function to make this pass?
well, I try to get throw error, some number.
So to be, this is saying what the function returns. So I wouldn't necessarily be using throw in this case, but you're on the right track. If the user gives us this, we need to give this back, this exact text. So yeah, start with an if. And if this is true, then we want to return that string. But what is our question we want to ask to fix this?
Type of num1 not
Type of num1 is, what were you saying, Emily?
yeah, if it's not equal to number, or if same thing with num2.
Yeah, if the type of num1 or the type of num2 is not equal to a number. You have to ask the question twice like this. Unfortunately, you cannot say this. I can't say, is the type of one num or the type of num2 not equal to number? It doesn't work that way. We have to fill out our statement each time. We have to say, is the type of one num1 not equal to a number, or type of num2 not equal to a number? Either of those are the case, return this instead. So now we can try our testing again. Let's see if we got the green light. Hooray! It returns the sum of two numbers, and if given non-numerical values, it lets the user know. So, you ever stick out for QA, quality assurance? This is your job. You are doing this for websites, applications, programs, front ends, back ends, what have you, and it is a great entry into the field. We have a lot of people that start web development really started in QA, because what you're given is senior and junior developers code, and your job is to break it, send it back. It's a really fun job. Like for real, a lot of people really enjoy this and spend their career in it. But be aware of that. This is a portion of web development that is highly important. Every company needs QAs, and it's a lower barrier to entry because it's more like, can you write tests? It's not the all-encompassing make my program work. It's just break my program and send it back. So testing. And if you're going to work in a place like San Francisco or Seattle, any of those big cities, and you don't know how to test, they won't hire you. Most of the places won't. They are all testing mindsets. So you want to, we'll revisit this a few times so it becomes a bit more familiar, but it will just take personal practice to get it down eventually. Okay, that's the very, very bare minimum of testing.